right, everybody, thank you for coming today and welcome back to the Real Estate Investment Group's market update, which is the This is the fourth quarter of 2020, our market update. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this, especially since the last couple of updates that we put out have been so darn accurate. So we were really just holding off here to put this update out because I needed more conversation. The information and the data that's out there right now is more unclear than at any point that I've been following the markets. And I've been following the markets heavily as a full-time hobby, if you will, even though it is my career. Still kind of feel like it's a hobby because it's so much fun. Since 1997. And we, back in the day in my old company, the Market Profits, we would forecast, we'd use the financial markets and other markets. Now we use the housing markets also to forecast political events such as the presidency. And so I kept a keen eye to business all the way since then. And from that time forward, I have not seen a more uncertain time, at least from the data and the statistics, as I'm seeing right now. So I decided to round up a group of experts that are in my inner circle. These two gentlemen that are with us today are guys that we connect with on a much deeper business level. Love to share some information together. And the other day I was having conversations with each of these guys individually, and both of the conversations really spoke to what I think is going to be happening here over the quarters to come, not just in our economy, but specifically in the real estate market. So I'd like to introduce you guys today to my two new experts. I have Mr. Tom Campone and Mr. Nelson Morales. Tom, would you mind just giving everybody a little intro? You're out in Chicago. Chicago market is really big. It's a great market to study, especially if you're looking at the way that big metropolises are doing in this. So Tom hails from Chicago, and Nelson actually also hails from Chicago as well. So Tom, I'm gonna let you start out, tell everybody, say hello, and tell everybody who you are.
Yeah, thanks for the invite today. So I'm Tom Campone. I'm with Keller Williams here in Chicago. My office is up in Lincoln Park, but I service the greater Chicago area in general. So city, suburbs, collar counties, pretty much everything.
Awesome. Yeah, and Tom's a thinker. In fact, to be honest, I've never told you this, Tom, but I really think you could be one of the guys on Fast Money on CNBC. Because you're really sharp. Nelson, I'm gonna ask you come in. I know anybody who's been a regular with the REIG, I know you've seen Nelson pop in and out of some videos from time to time. Some of you also may have been at some of his virtual clinics. I don't know if Nelson's going to drop another clinic on us today, but his last one was amazing, telling everybody what was going on and getting that information from the financial side of things about really, what's happening in this world and how cheap money really is here. Nelson also hails from Chicago. However, he is a national lender, so he knows everything about what's going on in all the states across the country. He's a super valuable tool here out of BlueLeaf Lending. Nelson, say hello.
How you doing, guys? So Nelson Morales, BlueLeaf Lending, subsidiary of Midwest Community Bank. And just as Gio said, I'm a multinational lender here. All 50 states, really, doing business in a lot of states, especially with Gio here in Nevada, Miami, New York, Wisconsin, Michigan, some of my surrounding states, a couple deals here and there in California, and then some deals down in the Southern Belt, Kentucky, Ohio, some places like that. So I get one-off deals here and there all over the place, but those first couple that I mentioned are my major markets going on here.
Well, we're really happy to have you. Thank you very much for showing up today. Look, guys, let's get down to business. The thing that really started this market update in particular was the uncertainty. And we're seeing it everywhere. We're in the middle of a incredibly unusual combination of events. We are now in the woods. We never in a million years thought that we would ever have a shutdown that affects the world on the platform that it has. And then to be followed up by murder hornets while you're shoveling snow in May, right? You got to worry about somebody stinging you and killing you while you're out scraping ice off your car in May. I heard that happen this year. You got wildfires going on like crazy. We have the worst political climate that we've had in probably all three of up here panelists' lifetimes based on our age groups. And we're still out there every day. And some people, like myself, like Tom, like Nelson, are having banner years in real estate and lending. And we're seeing prices go up, and we're seeing the arguments come out about why, how can this even be? So I'd like to jump in here and talk about what this current market environment really is. And I'm going to ask Nelson, can you give us a brief on what you feel, if you were to sum this up into a few paragraphs, where are we right now from the finance side of the market?
I mean, so I would say you got you got a really strong lending um, momentum going on right now, especially since COVID hit and interest rates dropped, and they essentially said that they were going to leave everything untouched for quite some time. So that's really led to a lot of the rates going down. But then what's also happened is during the lockdown periods earlier in the year, you really didn't see a whole lot of people coming out to buy real estate because everything was kind of on lockdown. There were still some deals going on, but nobody, it wasn't the traditional spring market or summer market where you had people coming out to make their offers or whatnot. So kind of what happened at that point is as soon as the lockdowns got lifted and everybody came out to buy, everybody also came out to refinance. And that's, so now you got the two groups coming in at the same time. And what that's done to lending is it's really slowed things down and back things up because there's just so many deals that the sheer volume of them, it's tough to get through as quickly as it used to be. They still happen in a timely manner, but I know that some of the bigger banks are really struggling. And I'm not going to say any names, of course, but I've heard some of the big banks be at 4 or 5 months for refinance.
Wow.
You know, extending purchases, letting rate locks expire on clients, and they got to pay money to keep the extensions and things of that nature happening. But overall, great year. Money is very inexpensive. If now is the time to either refinance or purchase or upgrade or any of the above, it's now because I don't think you're gonna have this window. You're gonna have it for a little while, but like everything, opportunity is everything. So right now is the opportunity to make that change for sure.
Well, it's interesting that you're saying this, Tom. I wonder if you're seeing the same things up in Chicago, but we did also have a lot of uncertainty here in Las Vegas, as everywhere I think did in the beginning months. But really, what I noticed was it wasn't a lack of interest. It ended up just becoming a backlog. And then once we started to kind of open up a little bit and money was able to start flowing again, I mean, here in Vegas, we saw, you know, we're still seeing banner month after month, week after week sales. Prices keep going up, and it's really because of this tiny little inventory that's out there. Tom, what are you seeing? I know we talked about the condo market being super strong, the multifamily market being super strong, and prices going up because you didn't have a ton of inventory. But what's it like in Chicago?
Yeah, so this year is really the story of basic supply and demand. So in March, there was a bunch of folks on the sideline that were considering listing their homes that either didn't list them or active listings got pulled because nobody wanted any strangers in their house. So what I saw was demand dropped, but demand only dropped by maybe 10 or 15%, and supply got cut in half year over year. So if we had talked in January or February, I would have told you, hey, I think the market's probably gonna be flat this year. But in those 4 weeks from mid-March to mid-April, we went from probably a pretty equilibrium market, equal buyers and sellers, to all of a sudden a seller's market again. So we went from little bit of activity to multiple offers on pretty much every deal that was out there. We've seen a little bit of that subside going into August and September as we get closer to the election. But that's been the story for 2020 is, supply's in half, demand has only dropped slightly and has actually been stoked by these rates now that are so low. So we're seeing increased demand and no supply.
Yeah. Demand continues, and they're creating the demand by keeping these rates historically low. Nelson actually said something I was going to jump in on, but from the financial markets, from the economy side of things, I believe that Nelson confirmed it there because he's on the inside. He's hearing that they're going to keep things the same for a while. Well, we're hearing that too. And I think that that's probably the bellwether main point that I think is going to continue to at least keep and hold demand at the levels that it is now. But see, here's the thing, out in Vegas, which might be a little bit of a microcosm, you know, our demand is through the roof, because on top of what we just described, which I consider to be the fundamentals of where the actual market is right now, just period. If you sprinkle on top the fact that we've got this mass exodus coming out of California, we're calling it out here, we're calling it the taxodus. They're just getting taxed out, and they're coming here in droves. And in addition to all of what we just said, the prices here continue to be strong because our demand is probably double that of what the average city is. And they've got money coming out of these cities, a lot of them. New York's another one. I see a lot of people out of Chicago. We get a lot of transfers, people that just don't want to be in Chicago anymore coming out here to Vegas. We get a lot of that. And I think it's real. You know, I don't think that this is some temporary market condition. I think that this is going to stick around for a while. What do you guys say to that?
Well, I would say big cities are hard to kill, right? Don't get me wrong. There's people that are leaving New York, people that are leaving Chicago, I would say, and less so, and people definitely leaving California. But I think cities are pretty resilient. They're hard to kill. And I think if you really dive deep in the numbers, especially in Chicago, we're getting more white collar, high paying jobs than as any of these other hot markets around the country. They're just coming at the expense of the suburbs. So what we're seeing in Chicago is a consolidation. We got McDonald's headquarters moved downtown. We got Kraft Heinz. We got, you can name the list going on and on. All of these suburban sprawling campuses relocated downtown. So Chicago, if you really dive deep into the numbers, yeah, we're losing some population on a macro level, but I think if you look at a micro level, we're in better shape than maybe what the news portrays.
You know, that's an interesting content. That's an interesting concept because one of the things that I wanted to touch upon is what's happening in the commercial world. And to hear that these, you know, big headquarters are moving from the suburbs out back into the city, taking advantage of historically opportune pricing in a big city like Chicago, that's a huge financial underpinning for your long-term support. But what happens in Nelson? What happens when the forbearance numbers, these companies that have continued to pay their employees for so long? I know out here in Vegas, I don't think that we're really going to know the real situation of what we're dealing with in terms of actual joblessness for quite some time. I mean, my forecast for that is I think we're not really going to see what's going on until 2021. I want to throw this out at you real quick. So on October 8th, Doug Duncan, who is the senior vice president for Fannie Mae, which anybody that's followed me knows that I consider Fannie Mae, because they insure most of the loans in the country, or at least a good portion of them, that when they come out and say something, that typically represents what I would consider to be the average for our country. And he just said that they expect the real number of jobless people at the end of 2021 to be double at least what it is now, so if not more. Meaning that the actual reporting that we're seeing right now, these actual numbers that we're seeing right now, could be off by at least 100% or more. He says economically that we may only be able to recapture 65 to 70% of the actual economy by the end of this pandemic, which he's targeting to be the end of 2021. Now, anybody that's been following Real Estate Investment Group updates know how accurate we are. I think that's an aggressive timeline. We're looking at Q2 to Q3 2022 to be back on track, at least with those numbers for our economy. But Nelson, I didn't get to hear what you said in the last one, but I'd like to hear what you have to say on this one.
In terms of this, the actual numbers, or
what are you guys seeing in the financial world that might support or refute this time frame and this idea that the number of jobless people right now might be much greater than what we have? How does that affect the loan business and the availability of money if by the middle of 2021 or the end of 2021 we have double the jobless rate? What does that mean for loans that were just written? Are they in higher? Is it more dangerous? Do they become more risky paper? And what happens going forward? Even though we have these historically low numbers, right? They're historically low.
Right.
You know, but how do you write a loan if the guy doesn't have a job or the woman doesn't have a job?
Well, I think what's really going on is, and what I've seen, and I can only speak to my sample, right? Because I'm not doing everybody's loan in the United States. I'm just doing my business that I do. But I mean, I'm not running across a whole lot of people that can't qualify due to COVID. That's in the sample of prospective buyers or people that want to refi that I get. Are there people? Yes. The people that I see that are hardest hit are going to be those that are in direct correlation to like the industries that COVID really impacts, like retail, restaurants, bars, the hotel industry, and specifically self-employed people. Those are the people that I see struggling the most. There's been one issue I had with one person who they wanted to see his year-to-date profit and loss statement to compare it against last year's numbers, and it was way down. And they knew it was because of COVID, but the change was so substantial that they couldn't justify giving him the mortgage. So you're running into a lot of situations like that. I think that we are probably going to see a lot of people be out of work later, and I'm pretty sure because what we're not also seeing either is we're not also seeing all the businesses that are going to permanently close. That is the big question mark, the thing that remains to be seen. There's all these businesses out there that are trying to stay alive and probably waiting on the second legislative wave to issue that second stimulus package to see if they can roll through with another PPP program, the payroll program, so they can try and pay the workers, so they can try and keep the doors open, so they can kind of skim into next year and hopefully regain some steam as they get control on the virus itself, so that kind of everything can reopen back up. So I do think that there's definitely going to be more losses, but just how true that is or not, I think we just have to wait, like you said, and just kind of see how everything carries over into. I'd say you probably won't see that impact till probably Q3, because I think we're basically a couple months
Q3 of
away
what?
from
2021?
next year. 2021
The
is
beginning
when
of
you'll
it? Is that what you're saying? To see the beginning of this, or to
right
see
to
the end of it?
see
To
to,
see the
to see the
beginning.
beginning results of what's
Right.
really happening. Probably
Right.
not till late next year, because we're basically about to step into Q1. That's only 3 months. So the next 6 months, it's probably going to take to feel all that kind of stuff and really start to see how everything's unfolding. I've seen people take forbearances on their house. I see a lot of it. The majority of the people that I see, they can still afford to make the payments, but they took the forbearance as a precautionary measure. Some took the forbearance as a precautionary measure against job loss. They didn't know for sure if they were going to keep their job or lose their job. So, but I haven't really met or seen anybody yet that has done it because they simply just can't pay it.
Now, see, I have. In fact, I've seen quite a bit. Tom, how about you? What are you seeing out there?
I might be a little more optimistic on this than the two of you. I think the interesting part about Chicago is, there's not one industry that makes up more than 10% of the employment here. So it's a pretty well diverse city. I'm seeing probably what Nelson said is self-employed people are probably hit the hardest. This is definitely lumpy the way it's distributed as far as job loss. It's more heavily weighted towards service workers, right? But I'm still seeing people come out of the woodwork to buy. They're definitely being more conservative on the purchase versus stretching. But I'm not. I think that anybody that's been able to survive through this point, I don't see that we're going to see a ton more businesses close in the next year if companies have been able to survive. I mean, at least in the area I'm seeing, people are out spending again. People are out buying again. They're spending money, and I think if you've made it this far, there's a pretty good chance that we're going to cruise through this.
It's a good and interesting perspective in that regard. I happen to think that the outlook here in general is really not going to be able to be foretold until about that same time frame that Nelson was talking about. I think Q3 2021 is when we really start to see the dust settle on truly what these numbers are. I mean, there's just a lot of speculation out there, and it can be confusing because people are wanting to get out, and we're wanting to go spend money, and we're wanting to go live our lives the way that we did 9 or 10 or 12 months ago. And that human nature of not wanting to be, cooped up definitely can be support for a short-term driving economy, which I believe is going to take us through the end of this year and about halfway through quarter number 1 of 2021. And the reason that I say that is, the arguments, let's pop here. The arguments out there going on politically have been a sore spot for most people because they get too emotional over the political aspects of, each party. I like to zoom out and I like to say to myself, well, one way or the other, whoever gets in, what's it going to be like? And how do we prosper? How do we continue to move forward? And that's what I'm always looking at for my clients. Our investors and anybody that buys or sells a house is technically an investor in real estate. But our clients are always thinking, well, how are we going to survive? What are we going to do next? And what does it look like? And it's probably been the hottest contested subject going around right now. The buzz terms and the buzzwords always, taking us to where the politics are going to land us. But I actually don't think that the outcome of this election is going to matter very much for the real estate market in particular and our economy in general. I think that this train has left the station already a long time ago with a lot of the things that we've just been talking about here. The jobless number is still way up in the air. People that are forbearing, whether they can't afford it or they can't afford it, may end up not having a job at the end of this where they can pay it anyways. And these numbers that we're seeing right now could be dramatically skewed depending on what happens. You've got the senior vice president of Fannie Mae coming out and saying that they believe that joblessness is a minimum of 100% understated and that they expect at least 4 more quarters of uncertainty. You've got Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley a couple of weeks ago put out a report that really caught my eye. And I've learned over the years when they make broad statements about the economy, they've generally been correct. And their best economists are seeing stagflation for the next 5 years. So they see it going through the end of whatever this next presidential term is going to be into a full year into the next term, which further supports my theory that I believe this train has left the station and has already on its way. And I don't think that historically low interest rates are going to be affected by that. I don't think that the people's desire to get out and want to spend money are going to be affected by that. What it could affect is our supply. And as Tom said a little bit earlier, he believes that this is a pure supply and demand play, and I happen to agree with you. This is really the purest form of economics that we could possibly see, being the real estate market here. And I think what's going to happen once these forbearance numbers come true and we actually see where we're at, and then I don't see a path out of this, guys, until at least 6 months after the last government stimulus gets released. If that means it comes in December, or how can it not come before Christmas? I don't know, guys. Jump in here. Help me out.
I make a case that if you're forecasting 2009, I would say I don't agree, and here's why. All right, since 2009, when everything hit, the banks have had to totally restructure the way that they do loans. Right? No, none of this, no money down, no verified income. So you've got 11 years of banks basically lending down the fairway, right? The basic loans. In that time, we've seen great appreciation for probably 6 of those 11 years. So last stat I read, and this was probably last year, people have more equity in their homes than they've had in the last 30 or 40 years overall, right? So even if we have a situation where stuff hits the fan, we've got 100% more unemployment next year, I think there's enough slack in the system to work through those deals without having to give the keys back to the bank and go into foreclosure, right? If I got $50,000 or $100,000 of equity in my home, there's no way I'm giving the keys back to the bank. I'm going to do not necessarily a short sale, but I'm going to go into default, and then I'm going to work through that over 2 or 3 months to get that property sold. I'm probably still going to walk away with a check. And even if that happens, I think it maybe evens the playing field a little bit more between buyers and sellers, but I'm not sure how much of that is going to come to fruition and really drive down the pricing.
Let me jump in there because you made a great point at the very beginning. No, I'm not forecasting 2009 levels at all. And for the exact reason that you just so well spoke right there, is that things have changed. And that's what people don't understand, is that from 2009 till now, everybody's like, oh, we're going to see this big crash. We're not. Do not forget where we were just coming from. Before this pandemic, we were in one of the strongest economies that you could possibly have. Real estate prices were still going up no matter what. None of that was being affected by this. And
Yeah,
the difference is,
I think I heard what you were saying was it was going to be stronger, if anything.
If anything, it was going to be stronger.
Yeah,
and I think it will continue to be. So, Tom, I think you very, very well described how the upset of pricing in, the supply and demand curve changing is going to be going forward here as a result of this. And I think that we're only going to see about a 15% max drop in prices. And that 15% might not be across the board, city to city. I think that the individual cities and economies, local economies, the way that they're being able to open and what they're going to be doing through the pandemic could definitely skew those numbers to the better. And maybe some instances in places that are harder hit might end up, seeing a bigger drop than 15. But I don't think by any means we're in for any more than that. What do you guys think?
So I think, interestingly enough, I think Tom hit a couple great points, and I think I'm going to piggyback on some of those. So I really think that the people that are going to upgrade are going to upgrade right now. They're either going to upgrade now or in the next 6 to 12 months. I think they're really going to consider listing their house and then buying up. Two is, unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is, which has already been in the making for years and years, is I think that you're going to see a bigger divide between the middle class and the lower class, because I think that a lot of the people that are working those jobs that are being eliminated are on the lower end of the price scale. So I think everybody in the middle is either going to be able, because their jobs are a little bit different and probably more grounded and not set in these industries that are being so impacted. You're going to see those guys, or like Tom said, a lot of white collar jobs. You're going to see a lot of those people sell their homes and then upgrade to the next level. So I think it's going to be strong. To Tom's point, I think it's going to keep going. I think people are going to upgrade. I think the people also that have wanted to do a tremendous amount of work to the home are going to stay put and refi, drop the payment, and start making changes to the house and either upgrading the house that they live in or going to buy something else. But I'm pretty sure that it's going to continue here strong. I want to say all the way through next year. I don't really see any heavy hitting.
I would agree with you. And I think right now is like one of the biggest opportunities for first-time home buyers that are buying starter homes, because starter homes are becoming like an extinct breed. No one's building them. You can't find them. And they've gone up in price significantly. So now
and the pricing is gone. You're right.
So right now at these rates is like the ultimate time for anyone who doesn't own, who wants to own in the future, to get their foot in the door, start building equity and being able to trade up. Because those starter homes, I don't think are coming back. They don't make sense for builders to build anymore. And they're just not happening in, 90% of the markets.
Yeah, in fact, there's a big movement. You guys are seeing some of it in Chicago right now called co-living. And I think it is the new starter home. If you guys know anything about that? Have you ever heard of it?
Like multifamily, like multi-generational living, or like multifamilies moving in together?
It's like multifamily buildings that are being built specifically. It's almost like if you think of a college dorm.
Oh yeah, I have seen these. Yes.
So they've got like the common areas, like the big outdoor pool that we're seeing them out here. It's a super popular out here, but it's super popular everywhere. In fact, we just brought on a new client who specifically builds these, and it's remarkable. I think that's the new starter home. That's a really good point, Tom. So I see us here. We seem to have some general consensus among the three platforms here, us three guys here that are talking. We still have some other things out there that are lingering. We've got the eviction moratoriums about to come due. In many places, in many states, they got extended. Will they get extended again? I think so. We've got, we still have the political tensions. We have the lowest rates in history. But the thing that I wanted to touch upon before I forget next, guys, is luxury prices. I'm seeing the strongest market in residential being luxury, meaning out here it means $600,000 and more. In a place like California, it might be 1.4 and over. Chicago, tell me about what it is. And Nelson, from a lending perspective, what are you seeing? And is there any advantageous aspect to jumbo loans right now? And what are you guys seeing? Because we're seeing it go up lots over here. Luxury real estate out here is one of the strongest residential markets, and I think it's going to continue to be as we continue over the time here.
I'm not seeing that in Chicago. I think luxury is probably the one weak point of this market. Just as people churn through, and we kind of define luxury probably, it's easy to define it right at that $1 million point. So anything over $1 million, I'd probably say, closer to $1.5 million. But in that range, $1 million, $1.5 million is kind of where you get into the real like luxury property here. And that's been, even with the low rates, I think here people are concerned with the general financing of the city and the state, and the taxes here that make luxury maybe less desirable, or I would say maybe the weakest part of the market right now. Not weak in general, units are still moving, but it's definitely weaker than the other parts of the market. The sweet spot here is that 400,000 to 700,000 range. That product pretty much flies off the shelf, but that luxury product takes a little bit more time right now.
Yeah, the average days by us, luxury product year over year, it used to be, and we're talking homes over 1.2 million now for this statistic. It used to be 93 days, and now we're actually at 122 days.
Right.
For our absorption rate on luxury properties. But that number has come down over the last 3 months. For us, it has, because of this outpour of people from high tax states that are coming here selling, their $2.4 million, 2,000 square foot property or high-rise condo, which is more and more popular out here in Vegas now as well. And they're able to get the same house newer with, probably newer features as well for 60% of the value, and they're able to have the equity, put that back in their bank account. And a lot of them are using it to buy investment properties out here as well. So Nelson, what are you seeing in that top end of the market out there? And is there anything that's going on that could be advantageous to people that are looking for properties like that, looking to upgrade, downgrade, side grade?
I mean, I would say right now on the jumbo side of things, anything in upwards of that $1 million mark in terms of financing is not the easiest place to get money right now. The jumbo market has its own set of guidelines that are not based upon the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac set of rules. They all have their similarities, but each investor is kind of different. That's kind of how it operates. So I think that market is a little scarce right now. I don't think there's a whole lot of people going in there. But I definitely agree with Tom in that I think anybody getting up into that 700,000 range, from that 450 to 700, is where you're seeing some good movement. Obviously, anything under 450 is where you're seeing a ton of movement. I also think that right now it's probably the best chance that anyone who's selling in that 450 or 500 price mark that wants to upgrade is going to get a good deal, because the pool really shrinks from 450 to 850. Those people necessarily, they don't have to buy an upgrade. They'd like to buy an upgrade. And the question I've always said becomes, are they willing to sacrifice, their lifestyle to upgrade if it's not exactly what they're looking for? And the answer to that, probably not. So unless the deal's really good in that price point, they're probably not going to make the move. But the money being so inexpensive is super attractive. Now, once you get above and you go super jumbo and you're back up into the 3 million and the 4 million, that's where the activity spikes again, because at that point, it's, there's really no concerns over can we afford it or can we do it. But I would tend to agree with Tom. I say you're really busy at 450 under, and you're pretty busy at that 450 to 850 marker, and then 850 and up, it's a slowdown for, I think, more than just reasons of price. I think there's concerns about value up there, and buying at too high a value at this point in the market when they can hold and buy other things and do investments. I've seen a lot of people doing more investments than anything else.
Yeah, that's what we're
Try,
seeing too.
Trying to pull cash out to buy multi-units, to buy condos, to buy singles, people that have a bunch of real estate that are just refinancing to drop rates and try and get those cash flows to a better spot or get properties paid off in a quicker manner. So that's kind of what I'm seeing on my end.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point, Nelson. We're seeing that tends to be probably the primary thing that we're seeing most of. Lots of interest in multifamily, in investment properties, just in general, even just one-offs. We actually have a couple of clients out of Chicago this week that just came out here specifically to buy condos. They were just buying condos, and they wanted to buy condos, and then they wanted to rent them because they know that once this moratorium comes up and once the jobless numbers really come up and the forbearance numbers come up, that there's going to need to be a strong rental market there to support it.
I agree. I agree.
At least for short term. And I think that's from an investment standpoint, like I said, a lot of our clients are investors, that is an incredibly appealing situation to be in. And with interest rates being as low as they are, how do you not? Another thing too, I want to bounce back to that we touched upon, but we didn't really get to chat about enough. And I think this could round us out for the update. But outside of residential, we've talked mostly about residential so far, real estate. Out here in Vegas and in the markets that we have affiliates in, including Chicago, New York, Miami, most of northern and western coast of Florida, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Washington, Oregon, Montana, Utah, Colorado, and the other areas that we have strong affiliates and network presence. We are seeing a lot of activity in industrial. We are seeing a lot of activity behind the scenes, mostly cash deals in commercial. We're seeing a lot of properties, especially retail properties, that are fire sale prices. I mean, for apparent reasons. Lots of people maybe were in poor or squeezing it in a mortgage situation to own the commercial property, and they're getting no relief because of what's going on. We're seeing a lot of action in that regard. What are you guys seeing where you are? What are you seeing generally speaking around Chicago? I heard earlier that you said that we're seeing a lot of larger companies that maybe have had headquarters in other areas outside of the city now coming back in, taking advantage of that. What are you seeing just in your average neighborhood, downtown area, little suburbs of Chicago, Fox Lake areas or Wilmette, or, are you seeing any kind of activity in particular from industrial or commercial that might be different than what it was 9 months ago?
I don't really have a great pulse on the industrial. It's funny though, you're the second person I've talked to this week that said industrial's hot, and there's a pretty good theory behind that. But I don't really have a lot of experience in industrial or retail. I will tell you multifamily right now, there's a lot of money out there from baby boomers and big institution money that is chasing these multifamily deals, whether it be, probably a 20 units, a little bit too small for them to make work. But things 25 units and bigger, the cap rates are just being driven down fairly low. So a lot of money that is out there chasing multifamily deals right now.
Yeah, and going for something with a low cap that's dropping like that speaks to investor sentiment. And it makes me think that they're looking for something that's going to give you more than what a traditional bank CD is going to give you, but not much more. So they're willing to take only slightly higher returns to lock in. You didn't say a number, but what I'm seeing, because I agree with you, I see the exact same thing. I'm seeing 4.5 and 5 cap rates, whereas 12 months ago I was seeing 8 to 12 cap rates on larger properties or things that would be equivalent to 25 doors or more. So by all means,
I'm seeing like 4 to 5, right? So, and that's in Chicago because it's a strong rental market here. That's pretty low, but those are value adds. You got to remember with multifamily, there's a lot of different ways to make money: forced appreciation, increased rents, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot more ways to make money on multifamily property, but there's also a lot of money chasing them right now. And so I can't really talk to the industrial or the retail. But as far as multifamily, it's still booming right now.
Awesome. Hey, Nelson, do you do loans on multifamily?
We do commercial. I tend to screen them and then hand them off to the commercial partner I have. But I mean, those are far and few between for me. If I were to speak to anything, it'd be about in general the commercial that I see out with my own eyes. But in terms of being, deep inside that market, I'm really not diving deep in there.
Great. Well, guys, thank you very much for showing up here today to have a conversation about what's going on in the markets across the country, locally in Chicago and Las Vegas. Is there anything that either of you guys wanted to say, or was there a topic that I didn't bring up that you guys wanted to speak on before we close?
No, I think
I'm good.
Well, if anybody needs an agent in Chicago, Tom's going to be watching the comments of this video. You can contact me, and I'll be happy to put you in touch with them. And if we can, we'll throw everybody's contact information up at the end of this video, so watch the credits as they roll. Nelson is one of the country's top lenders, lends in every state. Residential is his specialty. If you're looking to sell, right now is a great time to sell before we see a little dip in prices. I don't think it's going to last very long, a couple of quarters at most. And then I think we're going to keep on this train that's going to keep driving prices up, and residential is going to be super strong in the long haul. So if you have to sell, I think now is the time to sell. If you're looking to buy, I think quarter one, quarter two, quarter three of 2021 is going to be a great time to make some purchases. So if you're looking to buy something in Chicago, Tom and Nelson are your guys. Reach out to them, put a plan together, and be ready. If you're looking to purchase something in the West Coast, especially in Las Vegas, now is a great time to start looking and get some things on your radar. Start educating yourself on the market by putting some searches together with a real estate expert. Start talking to lenders to see what the best ways to leverage your money are. These two guys here today are experts in their field. They're great guys, but wherever you are, reach out to a professional, get some professional help, call us, and we'll put you together with one of our affiliates nationwide and in 8 other countries. Guys, thanks so much again for your time today.
You.
Hope to see you guys again on some future videos. Everybody have a great day and have a great week.
All right. Thank you. Bye.